All right, welcome to how to warm up for strength training. First, we are going to talk about why to warm up. So, the reason we want to warm up is because it prepares our muscles and joints for movement. It improves performance and reduces injury risk, and it increases muscle excitation, neural drive, gets you prepared to try hard, rate of force development, all of that. And it also mentally prepares you for the task of lifting heavy. So, I like to break the warm up down into basically two phases here. So, phase one is a general warm up. So, you can just use some light cardio to raise your body temperature, 5 or 10 minutes on a bike or like a treadmill or a treadmill on an incline should do the trick. If it's really cold in your gym, this can be a really great way to warm yourself up. It's not always necessary. Middle of summer in Arizona, you probably don't need to do this. You're probably already pretty warm. But for colder places or for people who just generally tend to run colder, a little bit of cardio can do the trick and it doesn't have to be very hard. Um, Phase two is the progressive warm up. So that's where we're just going to start doing the thing that we want to do. So the empty bar or very light weights, or if this was climbing, this is where we would just start off with really easy climbs. Sometimes we can jump right to this because doing an empty bar set or doing very lightweight can increase your body temperature, which is what we want to be doing in the general warm up. But then we can start to progress it, and that's going to get more specific for what we want to do. So basically, starting to add more weight until we reach our top set, our working set, or adding more load if we're on a hangboard, or like if this was a climbing session, progressing to the grade level that you're going to be climbing that day. And it also allows you to practice the specific variation that you're going to be doing for that workout. So, for example, if you are prescribed paused squats, you wouldn't want to start your warm up with regular squats and then start pausing once it gets heavy because it doesn't prepare you for those pauses if you're not doing them while you're warming up. And if you watch the autoregulation video, you'll see that it's also not going to prepare you for judging the right workload for a pause squat. If we're just doing regular squats until it starts to feel hard, you're not going to be able to pick the right RPE for your pause squats. So, any variation that's prescribed, you want to be doing that. So if there's pauses, you want to pause on your warm ups. If it's like a pin squat or a pin bench, you want to be using pins on your warm ups. Um, any other thing like that, we want to make sure that we're also doing it on our warm ups so that we are prepared for it. Okay, let's talk about some specific warm up options. So there's sort of three that I like to talk to people about. One is a progressive warm up. So this is best for like new exercises, maybe you've never done before, new rep ranges you haven't done before, or if you're easing back in after an injury. This is sort of just a like feel it out warm up progression. There's no like formula to this. It's just start light, start adding load slowly, and work up to the target intensity. Or if you have symptoms, work up to something that feels tolerable for you. So this is we're just using our best guess to warm up and just warming up slowly, adding a little bit of load at a time. For the other option, there's a target weight division that we can do. So this requires a little bit of math. Basically, what you want to do is divide your target weight. So you always want to have a target weight in mind when you're going into a session. If you're brand new or you haven't done an exercise before or you've never lifted before and you're listening to this, you may not have a target weight for your first session. But once you have a little history with an exercise, you'll kind of have an idea of like about where you're going to end up for a working set. And so you'll have a target weight, and basically you'll take that weight and divide it by the number of warm up sets for even increment warm ups. And I'll show you an example of this so you can see it in a second here. The next one is a percentage-based progression. So for this one, you also want to have like a target weight. And basically all you're going to do is like a set at 40%, like maybe a set at an empty bar or something, a set at 40%, a set at 50%, a set at 60%, etc., until you are at your working weight. So, like I said, the progressive warm up, we're going to stick to this, goes for any warm up. I want you to stick to the prescribed rep range and variation so that you can accurately judge your RPE. So, what that means is if it is sets of 6 paused squats, you're going to do sets of 6 for all of your warm up sets. And you're also going to pause for all of your warm up sets. That way, you're able to accurately judge your RPE. If you do less reps or more reps than are prescribed, it's going to be really hard for you to know what weight to jump to hit your target RPE in the workout. If you want, and this is something that I do, for the really light warm-up sets, I'll do more reps sometimes. So like I'll do a set of 8 or 10 with an empty bar, or like maybe a set of 8 or 10 or whatever I want to do with like my first load or something. But after that, you want to start hitting your rep range so that you can be more accurate. Would recommend doing any pauses or any other variation that you're going to need to do in the workout as part of the warm up the whole time, though. You want to use ideally no more than 4 to 6 warm up sets when possible so that you're not getting super tired. So, this isn't like a law. You could definitely do more warm up sets if you really need to. Or you could do less. So if you're warming up for an overhead press, for an example, if the empty bar is already pretty heavy for you, you might not end up doing that many warm up sets to get to your target weight. So if it's something where the load is pretty low, for whatever reason, whether you have like symptoms or you're just not that strong, or the exercise is new to you, so you haven't developed a lot of strength on that exercise, you might not end up having a lot of warm up sets, and that's okay. We just want to make sure that we're warming up, and you don't have to do 4 to 6 sets if you are not able to. That's just a general guideline. So that would be my recommendation, is to do something between 4 to 6 sets if you're able to. And basically an example of that's going to look like doing sets of 6 until you get to your RPE 6. And then you want to start paying attention and you want to start making smaller increases once you get to about an RPE 6, which is going to be 4 more reps left in the tank. And then you can fine tune. Rule of thumb, if you add 3 to 8% to the bar or 3 to 8% to the load, in general, that's going to raise the RPE by about 1 point. So if you're at an RPE 6 and you add 3 to 8%, it's probably going to land you somewhere around an RPE 7. So that's a good rule of thumb to know. So here's what that might look like. This is what I would probably do if I was like warming up for this target weight of 300 for 6. Let's say the prescription is 6 reps at RPE 8. And just for a vocabulary definition here, your working weight is a weight that's not considered part of the warm up, but is part of the main training session. So we're working up to a working weight. So I might start on let's say this is a deadlift. I would start with 135 on the bar. And then so we're looking at the progressive warm up column here. So the first set, I would do 135 for a set of 6. The next set, I might do 185 for a set of 6, and then 225, and then 250, and then 275. And now I'm starting to get a little close. So I'm going to do 285 just to kind of see how that's feeling. And if that's feeling good and it's feeling like I'm going to be able to hit 300, I'll go ahead and hit 300 after that. Or sometimes I will just jump from 275 to 300 if I know that that's going to be fine that day. For the other example, so the target weight divided by the number of warm-ups that we want. So let's say we are the number of sets we want to get up there. Let's say we're working up to 300. We want to get there in 6 sets. So you would just divide 300 by 6, and that's going to give you 50-pound increments. So you would start with 50 pounds, which is just a little above the bar. Which would actually be hard to load, but you could do RDLs at that weight if you wanted to. You wouldn't want to be picking up a bar with 2.5 pound plates on either side. Well, you can pick it up off the ground. You can totally deadlift it off the ground if you want. It's just going to be really, really low to the ground, and it's not going to be the same position that you'd be deadlifting at with normal plates. So just keep that in mind. And then you jump to 100, then you would jump to 150, and then 200, then 250, and then right up to 300. So that's an option as well, is taking your target weight and dividing it by the number of warm-ups. Or we could go percentage based. So we're working up to 300, so we're just going to take a percentage of that. So I believe this is 40. Yeah, 40%, 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%, and then jumping right to 100%, which is 300. So for all of these methods, just be prepared to adjust. You're going to want to be paying attention the whole time, ideally, but definitely towards the end of the warm up. So when you're getting to your last couple of warm up sets, pay attention to how things are feeling. Pay attention to how many more reps you have in the tank, and be prepared to adjust up or down for your working weight. So if you are warming up and 275 is feeling real heavy, and you can tell 300 might be an overshoot, it's not going to be wise to jump up to 300. You might want to jump up to like 280, 285, 290, something that's not 300, so that you're hitting your target intensity. Same thing with any of these other numbers. Pay attention and be prepared to adjust. Also, be prepared to adjust up. If you hit 285 and it's flying, and you think 300 is also going to fly, you can go ahead and hit 300 if you want, but you can also maybe go a little heavier than that, hit 305, 310, whatever makes sense for you. And as you get more comfortable with warming up, you'll be able to fine tune these adjustments. And this is definitely something I can help you with. So if you have questions about any of this, definitely drop them in the Discord after you watch this. Okay, using RPE, RIR starts with the warm up. So hopefully you've watched the auto regulation video. If you haven't, go ahead and do that. But we're adjusting based on your performance. So the key word here is performance, not how you feel, how you're actually performing, because you can feel quite shitty and still perform really well. You can also feel quite motivated, quite excited for the session and not perform well. So we want to pay attention to how we're actually performing, the speed of the bar, and how things are actually moving. I recommend filming yourself, because then you have 2 data points to go off of. You don't just get to experience lifting the weight, but you also get to watch yourself lift it, and you can tell how hard you're trying. You can look at the speed of the bar and judge your performance based off of that. So what I would do going into the session is aim to repeat last week's performance. Always aim to repeat last week's performance. That's a good target weight. If you're performing well, increase the load by 3 to 8%. And if you're stronger that day, then you're going to be able to do that and hit your target intensity. If you're performing poorly, hit your target RPE, even if it's less than last time. So make sure you're paying attention when you warm up. And if you're not able to repeat last week's performance for whatever reason, be prepared to adjust. Some tips, like I said, increasing 3 to 8% will generally increase the RPE by 1 point. Over time, I would try to standardize your warm up. So I have a standardized warm up that I do for pretty much every exercise. I've been lifting long enough now that I have experience on most exercises. I have a history on most exercises. So I have a standardized warm up that I do. That way I know how certain weights feel every single time I lift, and whether I'm having a good day, whether I'm having a bad day, I know how it should feel, and I'm able to make some adjustments based off of that. So, standardizing your warm up, if possible, is a really good tip. If you're new to lifting, that's going to be hard. It's kind of a moving target because you're probably going to be making gains almost every session. So, your strength is going to go up pretty much every week if you're brand new to training. So your warm up will need to be adjusted because of that. But the longer you lift, the slower progress gets. It doesn't mean progress completely stops, but it does get slower. And so you can start to standardize your warm up when that happens. An RPE calculator, which we do have linked on Discord in the helpful links section, can ballpark you, but it can be different for everyone for each lift. So the calculator is not like rule of law. You can use it to get an estimate, but be prepared to adjust, be prepared to learn from what you put in the calculator. And if you try it and it feels harder than it should, you know, make note of that. If it feels easier than it should, also make note of that. But it can get you close if you're not sure. So you're welcome to use the calculator. So in our Discord channel, when you go to the helpful links channel, this is what it looks like. We have a bunch of helpful links here. And as you can see, the RPE calculator is right there. And is one of the helpful links. So make sure that you use that. Also, go to my podcast down here, the Strong AF podcast, because I have a whole podcast episode about warming up where I talk about exactly what I'm talking about now. And it might be helpful for you to listen to it again or listen to just a different recording of me talking about this. You can also watch this or listen to it on the go when you're commuting or whatever. When you're training. So go ahead and listen to that. Okay, so when you're warming up, a special consideration for your deadlift. So when we're warming up for deadlifts, if your warm up weight is less than 135, the bar is going to be on the floor basically. Or if your gym doesn't have bumper plates. So if your gym has bumper plates, you could start with 10 pounds on either side, and that would raise the bar to the right height because of the diameter of those plates, and that would be okay. And that would mean you could start with 65 pounds. But if your gym doesn't have those, or you're starting with less than 65 pounds, that means the bar is going to be closer to the floor than we necessarily would like it to. Ideally, we want the bar about 8 inches or 20 centimeters off the floor. So if that's the case, if your gym doesn't have bumper plates and you're doing a conventional deadlift, you may want to elevate the bar on blocks or on pins or on safeties so that it's about so the bar is about 8 inches off the floor, and that's going to put you at the ideal height to get into a good position and use the form cues that we have for you. If your target weight on deadlifts are 200 plus, you're probably okay starting with 135 or even a little bit more. I start with 25 kg plates on each side, which is actually 155. And that is totally fine. Super submaximal for me or anyone who's deadlifting super heavy. We still want to warm up light. So, we're not going to warm up with 300 pounds, but, you can put more weight on the bar. Sometimes people will start with like 65 pounds or like 95 pounds. And that's like probably way too light if your deadlift is 200 pounds or more. If your target weight on deadlift is less than 200 pounds, you probably want to start with less. So I'll let you make the judgment on that, but because it depends on where your number's at, but start with less. And you might start differently. If you're using those other warm-up options that we discussed, you might actually start with a different weight. Like I said, the option 2 was having you start with like 50 pounds. I think the other one was like 135. I can't remember, 130. So take that into consideration too. So if we did a warm up like this, like let's say the target weight is about 300, just to run you through another example here. We'd start with 135, do it for 6 reps. You can ask yourself, how many more reps did I have left in the tank? Probably a lot. So move on. 185 by 6, how many reps did I have left in the tank? Probably also a lot. Move on. 225 for 6. How many reps left did I have in the tank? Also, probably kind of a lot. If we're working up to 300, 250 by 6, how many reps did I have in the tank? And then probably when you're starting to get pretty close, maybe 250, maybe 275, you should really start paying attention. How many reps did you have left in the tank? Maybe only 5 or 6. Okay, we're getting closer to our target intensity here. If it's going to be an RPE8, which I didn't write down here, but that's probably what it's going to be. So maybe we'll hit 295 for 6. How many reps did I have left in the tank? Okay, I think I could have done 4 more reps after that set of 6. Okay, so maybe we'll jump up to 305 because, 4 more reps left in the tank is further away from RPE8 than we might have expected. How many reps do we have in the tank? Somewhere between like 1 and 3, let's say. So if you only had 1 more rep left after that set and the prescription was to hit 6 reps at RPE8, you only had 1 rep left. That means it wasn't an RPE8. That means it was an RPE9 and you overshot. So I would probably drop 10% off the bar for your next set if you have another set prescribed. If you think you had 2 more reps left in the tank, then you are on target and you can repeat that weight. You want to ask yourself, can I repeat this weight and keep 2 more reps left in the tank if you have another set prescribed? If you think so, go ahead and do it again. If not, you can adjust down. If you think you had 3 or more reps left in the tank, then you undershot and you can adjust. You can accept that and know to go up for next week, or you can adjust up 3 to 8% for the next set. So hopefully these examples are helpful. Okay, here's some hot tips. Like I said, over time, standardize your warm up. Have a target weight in mind for the session, but be prepared to adjust up or down. Increasing 3 to 8% will generally increase the RPE by 1 point. So if you're close or you need to go down, keep that in mind. RPE calculators can ballpark you, can be different for everyone, can be different for each lift. Also, reps lie. So sometimes people will be like, oh, I did, X exercise for 10 or 12 reps at RP8. It's saying that like my 1 rep max is this. And now I need to do 4 reps of this exercise. If you're basing it off of a high rep set, it's less likely to be accurate. So just keep that in mind. Don't get attached. Accept and embrace normal daily fluctuations. They happen. I want you to push yourself. Some of you won't push yourself enough. I don't want you repeating weights multiple times a week and having it feel too easy, but also don't assume that you're going to go up every week because, life gets in the way sometimes. So pay attention to your warm up and adjust accordingly. One thing to ask yourself is, did you actually get stronger or did you just do more weight at a higher RPE? So those of you who are eager to push the weight, eager to get stronger, if you find yourself on the side of someone who tends to overshoot more often than not, I want you to ask yourself, did you actually get stronger or did you put more weight on the bar and now it's a higher RPE? So sometimes people will be like, oh my God, I hit 300 pounds on my deadlift. I'm definitely going to go 315 next time because that's 3 plates. Wouldn't that be cool? And then they do it and it's like an RPE 9 or 10. Well, you didn't actually get stronger. You just put more weight on the bar. The RPE was higher. You overshot. So you're not actually stronger. You're just doing something harder, which overshooting happens occasionally. It's not a big deal. It's how we learn. It's how we get better at RPE. But we don't want to be overshooting consistently. So keep that in mind. If you overshoot consistently, you're going to hit a wall faster. Your progress can stall because you're just going to be accumulating more fatigue than you can really recover from. If you undershoot consistently, you're not going to make progress or you're going to make way slower progress than necessary. So also keep that in mind. And that is why we have the RPE audits in this program. Okay, I want to talk really quickly about warming up for different exercises because obviously not every exercise in this program is a barbell exercise, and the example that I gave you earlier might not apply. So, body weight exercises, all we're going to do is start with easier variations. So, if you're doing like push ups or pull ups in any of the programs, you could start with an assisted pull up. You could start with banded pull ups. You could start with lat pull downs in order to warm up. If a body weight pull up is pretty hard for you, or it's pretty close, or it overshoots your target intensity, probably going to want to warm up and maybe even do the exercise with one of these variations, which in any of the programs, you should be able to swap these out by once you start the workout, clicking on the name of the exercise and a drop down menu will show up and you can select assisted pull ups or lat pull downs or something like that. But if you are planning to do push ups or pull ups, like let's say pull ups, for example, in your workout as part of like your work set, you might want to start with something easier just as like a warm up, unless pull ups are already really easy for you and you're going to be adding load to your pull ups. Same thing with push ups. You can start with a push up on a bench, a push up on a wall if you really have to, and progress down to a body weight push up if that's something that you're doing in the program. Okay, for dumbbell exercises, all we're going to do is use light dumbbells for the movement pattern that we're training. So, if it's a overhead press, a shoulder press with dumbbells, we're just going to start with light dumbbells and increase until we reach our target intensity. One problem that people can run into with dumbbell exercises, especially for upper body exercises where increasing 5 pounds can be quite a lot, or even 10 pounds. Some dumbbells only go up by 10 pounds at some gyms. If the dumbbell increments don't align with your target RPE, you have two options. One, you can stick with the lighter weight and just perform more reps until you reach your target RPE. So, for example, if it says, I want you to do 8 reps at RPE 8, but the 20-pound dumbbell feels too easy and the 25 dumbbell feels too hard, like you're not even able to complete 8 reps, or 8 reps is RPE 10, what you can do is stick with the 20-pound dumbbell and do more than 8 reps until you reach something that feels like an RPE 8. The other option is you can move up to the heavier weights. You can grab the 25-pound dumbbell and do however many reps you can until it feels like an RPE 8. You may end up needing to repeat that 25 pounds multiple sessions until you get stronger and you're able to do all of the reps that are prescribed, but that's another option. Usually I start with the first option, but you can use the second option if you want to also. Just adjust based on what feels best for you, and the main point is to hit your target intensity. So for barbell exercises, we discussed just start with the empty bar and add small increments. If you're doing something like an overhead press and the empty bar is pretty close to your target intensity, you could start with like dumbbells and then work up to the barbell. So that's also an option. For machine exercises, you're just going to start with a low resistance, establish the range of motion of the exercise, and then just increase gradually. A lot of gyms also have these little blocks you can put on the plate stack for a machine that can help you increase 5 or 2.5 pounds. So look around for those. I've also just hooked weight plates, like small weight plates, like 5 or 2.5 pound plates on like the pin. And that's another way that you can go up if the increments on the plates aren't convenient. If it's a plate loaded machine, that's a different story, but that's how you can warm up for those. For hangboard, really similar. So basically you're just going to start with large holds or jugs, hang for, the prescription seconds at body weight or with assistance if you need to take weight off using a pulley, a band, your feet, you can do that. Then you're going to move to a slightly smaller edge or your target edge size, which for most people is going to be somewhere between a 20 to 30 millimeter edge, basically like a full pad edge. And you're going to hang for the prescription amount of seconds. Aim for something easy as your warm up, and then increase the difficulty. So if it's small edge hangs, decrease the edge size. If it's weighted hangs add load to increase the difficulty. And then you're going to finish with the prescribed hangs at your target intensity, whatever it says on the prescription. If you're doing like edge lifts, so on a with a loading pin with one hand at a time, then the warm up will be slightly different. You can probably start with your target edge size and just start with lightweight and then progressively go heavier in load until you reach your target intensity. So obviously it's a little bit different than hangboard. And the nice thing about edge lifts is you can start with less than body weight and warm up that way. So really easy to do that. Okay, that's the end of the warm up section. Let me know if you have questions about warming up, post them on Discord. And again, listen to the podcast episode on this as well. It covers the same information, but it's always good to hear again. And if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the Discord or listen to this recording again.